Welcome, Aiden. While we are waiting for all of the other learners to hop on, feel free to do the do now.
I think it takes a while for the students to come on. I see microphones are still off, and etc. Video. I feel a bit tempted to draw pictures like yesterday. It was quite fun.
Hi, Adam. Welcome to today's class. We're just waiting for everyone to hop on, so make yourself comfortable. And if you want, you can start with the do now.
Yeah, so there's some intro questions for everyone.
You can share an emoji about how you're feeling about your class for today. Let us know how you feel. Or you can unmute yourself and tell us even.
I'm actually also interested to know where the students are in the country. So if you feel like giving up your location, I'm in Cape Town, in a little place called Fishhook. Maybe you've been on holiday to see the whales. Okay.
Can you guys maybe just give us a thumbs up or thumbs down if you can hear us?
There we go.
Thumbs up from Aiden.
Oh, Sasetu's in the house.
Hey, Sasetu, welcome. So this is our first lesson of stats. Let me just see if I can see you guys. You are more than welcome to show yourselves over the video. You can show your video. Otherwise, you can chat with us and unmute yourself and just say hello, or feel free to send a message in the chat. But yeah, I am your mentor at Watobe. I'm here to just help out and share at the end normally the revision work that you guys have before your next lessons. And I'm also here to see how much work you guys do and to place it on a leaderboard so that you guys can get some reward and get some shout outs from your peers. And then on the other hand, we've got our amazing tutor, Peter, here, who is going to share a bit of himself before he starts the class with us. Okay, so enjoy. Peter.
Thanks, Elsa. Welcome, everyone. I know that this probably is a bit new to you. This whole suddenly teachers are online and you can kind of be in class but not at school. But it's good to be with you. So at the moment, when I can see, I've got 3 students with me, and I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. Well, I'll just introduce myself briefly after this first bit, but I'd love for you to first tell me where you are in the country. So in the chat, if you could just say like KZN or Joburg, Eastern Cape. I'd love to know where you are. And if you're feeling very brave, even say the city or town that you're in, just so I have some context, and I'll share where I am. And it's just super helpful. Western Cape. Okay, so Aiden's in the Western Cape, in Cape Town. So you're not too far from where I am. Gauteng, Adam. Okay, welcome. I was in Gauteng last year when during lockdown, I came back into the country and Cyril treated me to a 2-week stay in an isolation ward. But I hope to get back there for a more pleasant occasion. Pretoria West. Fantastic. Who else? Whereabouts? Welcome, Jolene and Nolene. I see you are joining us. If you could just give us a sense of where you are in the country. Gauteng. Yeah, I definitely need to come back to Gauteng in a more pleasant experience than the last time. Asemakle, welcome. Okay, so that is fantastic just to get a sense. I would like everyone, and I know that there's still people who are joining, and we'll, Ozan, if you could just welcome them as they arrive. But for the rest of us, could we please put our attention to the main screen? And this unit itself is going to be on stats and probability, which is a really interesting unit. And it is, generally, if you get to grips with it early and get a good understanding, it's, relatively easy marks. But a lot of students need the time to kind of just take it in. So I'd like you to start with the questions on the board. So I'm also going to draw on the screen. So hopefully you can see my magic pen. So this is question number 1. This is question number 2. And this is question number 3. The first 2 are multiple choice. And then the third one, you have to say whether you think it's A, B, or C. So I suppose it's also multiple choice. So I'm going to give you, say, 3 minutes to try and finish this. It's 6 minutes past. At 10 past, I'm going to answer the questions. And then while you're doing that, we're gonna welcome our newbies, and we'll chat a little bit, and maybe I'll tell you some more stories. Okay, if you can see the screen, just give me a thumbs up too. That's also always awesome. Can you see it clearly? All right. So just a reminder, at 10 past, I will give you some feedback, but I really just want you to get a feel for the type of questions we'll be asking in the section. And if you feel like, whoa, what magic is this? What is going on here? What sorcery is this? Then we can talk about that. But for the moment, I'm kind of starting at this point where we're asked about things like data and medians. Once you've got your answers, could you put them in the chat? And again, there's no guarantee they'll be right. So at this point, we're all just sort of shooting them off. But in sort of the format of, let me just make sure I've got the right thing. So maybe in the chat, we would have something like, for question 1, you choose an answer. For question 2, you choose an answer. And then for 3, you'll have A, B, C, D. I'd love to see what your answers are if you finish before 10 past. So one of the things, Alzan, that's also helpful for me is just to know if the screen is big enough, if I've zoomed in enough, or the text is too small. So you just shout if it's, yeah.
Will do, Peter.
Okay.
So far it looks cool. I can see everything.
Perfect.
For the rest of you guys, can you see? You can just say thumbs up or thumbs down. Great. We see all the thumbs up. Thanks, guys.
Can you see them? Where do you see them? But I suppose that's...
I've got very good eyes. No, actually, it's a reaction. So it's not in the chat. They put it
okay. I see.
next to
right.
the participant's name.
So let's get started. So basically, in the section for today's lesson, the two main ideas are going to be, if you've got a data set, how do I find the middle of that data set? Or what the fancy word would be, what is the measure of central tendency? And also we're interested in knowing how do we measure how spread out a data set is? So that's sort of two important questions. And then another question is, what are the different types of data? You know, people talk about the word like data all the time on the internet, but are there different types? How do we work with that? And so the question that I was trying to get at here was, look, basically they give the temperatures for days in January, and it says, what is the median of these temperatures? And the median is a measure of central tendency. But the sneaky bit here is that the median requires the data to be ranked from smallest to biggest. And at this stage, this data is not ranked. And so I'm going to reveal the answer now. But one of the first things we have to do, oh, is my screen too small here? Let's quickly. One of the things I have to do is I actually have to rank the data in order. Let me just move some of this around. Apologies if it's... Okay, so I'll just move this. And so I basically, not too many things on my screen, but basically the answer should be 31 or C. And the reason it would be is it's in the middle of the data set that I've kind of drawn on the screen there. Okay, so the question one's answer is going to be C. Get rid of all that. Question two's answer is going to be, let's have a look. It's going to be A. And the way that I would do it, well, let's move that away, is I would just take the biggest minus the smallest. So the question is about the range. And so because the range is the biggest one here is 74.76, and that's the smallest, and you should get that as the answer. And then for the third one, there are basically two different types of data. There's data that is made up of numbers. We call that quantitative data. And then data that's made up of words, which is qualitative data. Within data that's made up of numbers, we get discrete data for data that is countable, or data that doesn't have infinitely many little pieces of it. And so that would be discrete data, and continuous data is normally something that we can measure. So the price of a cheeseburger could be like £4.69. It can't be £4.69 and 3/millionth of a cent. It only has a distinct number of values. And so this would be quantitative data. Your position in the league table of a football can't be 3.5. It can only be 4 or 7 or 8. And so in this case, it's also going to be discrete data. The area of the classroom is going to be, you could keep breaking down the area of a classroom down to a very, very small, say 27.5,789 meters. And so this is going to be continuous data. Okay, so that's continuous data. And the number of pupils, the names of pupils. Well, my name's Peter, and so that's not really a number so much as it is a combination of letters, and we'd call that qualitative data. Okay, so that was the thing to get going. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to briefly introduce myself before we really launch into the whole thing. And so basically, that's me in my tutoring session space. That's my name. I've been called all these things when I've taught overseas. Students called me Mr. S because they couldn't say my name. And I'm happy with all those terms. I live in that part of the world, in Cape Town. And I live in a place called Fishhook, and that's what it looks like if you look down from the mountain. And my favorite things to do are those. Okay, so that's a little bit about me, just so you have some context of the person behind the microphone. Are there any questions you want to ask before we properly get going? Are you happy for me to reveal the mysteries and wizardry of stats to you? Okay, I'm going to skip this for now, but basically, essentially what I was trying to say is the main goal here is when we do statistics, we're trying to summarize data so we can make meaningful decisions, okay? So a lot of what we'll do is we'll take data and we'll summarize it so that we can make better decisions. And so that's really the value of statistics. That's how we use it in the real world. But we need some of the mathematical theory to help us do that. So we're going to start with this question over here. And in this question, I've given you a certain number of data points, and they're arranged from smallest to biggest. And I would like you to try and do them. So, for example, the questions are asking, let me just clarify before we get going. The mode is a measure of central tendency. The median is another measure, and the mean is another measure. The sum is another mathematical word we use, and then there's sort of an application question at the end. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to try and work these out. If you are feeling like things are not going well, unhappy land is here, what I want you to do is put a thumbs down or an unhappy face in the chat, and then I will kind of give more detail. Or if you like life is just winning, then let me know and I'll up the pace as we go. Okay, so 2 minutes of practice for you, and then we'll come back to this. Oh, look at all the people. Welcome, Jolene and Valerie. And I can't see who that is. Seems like a whole bunch of social media icons. Oratiluwe, welcome. It's great to have all these students. I'm really impressed that you are working hard and that you are taking responsibility for your learning. Oh, I see some answers coming in. Yeah, actually, it would be super awesome. Even if you don't get them right at this point, just fire off, just get used to how the functionality works. If you could just pop your answers in the chat, we'll see if we're agreeing or if we're disagreeing. So Aiden's got his answers in. Anybody else want to volunteer some answers?
It seems like Solo Fellow, you are unmuted. Would you like to say something? Feel free to share your answer if you'd like.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the answers to this, and I'm just going to, if I can get all my proportions accurate here. So I went through before the lesson. See if I can get this right. See dimensions. I went through before the lesson and I, just wrote in the answers. So what you first need to check, one of the important things you need to do is you need to know how many data points are actually in this collection. And so according to what I've done, I got 14 data points. Now, the mode is easy because it's the most frequently occurring value. And so to me, from what I can see, it's going to be 7. The median, however, is a little bit more tricky. It's towards the middle of the data set. And so if we look at the median, the question I need to ask is, how is the median 6 if 6 isn't actually in the data set? And so the reason it's 6 is that the median falls sort of halfway, falls in between 5 and 7. And so we take the average of those two to get the median. To calculate the sum, you simply add up all the items in the list. And then to get the mean, what I need to do is I take that sum and I divide it by the number of items. So I would just get 70 divided by 14, and then I'd get 5. Okay, so that is some basic statistical calculations. And the topic of today's lesson is, how do I calculate statistics? Now, the second part of the question is a little bit harder. And I'm very interested to know, I'd love for everyone to even guess. I'll read through it a little bit with you, even if you haven't done it yet. It says, after writing 5 maths tests, your mean mark is 65%. So that's your average. You've added up, well, I mean, the mean is what it is here. You've added up the items and divided by the total number of items. It turns out after the 6th test, you have an average of 70%. What wizardry do you need to do to work out how much you got in the 6th test? And even if you were guessing, I mean, you could guess or you could try and work it out. I want to give you a minute to just think about that. And even if you guess, I'd love to know where you guess. And just pop it in the chat stream, because sometimes your intuition will say, it reveals quite a lot about what you're thinking. So I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay, come on, give it a guess. I'm guessing if I've written 5 tests and I've got 65% on average at that point, to get to 70, I suppose I have to get more than 65. I think that's, logic says I have to get more. The question is, how much more for 65 do I have to get in order to have an average of 70? So please pop your guesses in the chat there. Okay, so I'm guessing that basically some of you will find this difficult. And the reason is it's hard to make sense of what you got for those 5 tests. Now, the way to do it is actually to think about, okay, well, what do you have to have in total at the end? So because they said, I'm saying each test is out of 100% or 1 in decimal notation. So if you ended up with 70% for 6 tests as an average, really, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say 6 times 70%, because that was your average. Now, 70% written as a fraction is just 70 over 100. So 6 times 70 over 100 is 4.2. Now, if you think about what you had so far after writing 5 tests, for 5 tests, your average was 65%. And so written as a decimal, 0.65 or 65 over 100. And so 5 times 0.65 is 3.25. So what is the difference between these two? Well, 4.2 minus 3.25 is 0.95. And you needed to get 95% for the last answer. Okay. Now that is a bit tricky, so don't worry if you felt a little bit, I was just sort of throwing that in there to keep it interesting. Let's go on to the next question. So in this next question, I'm adding something a little bit more. At the moment, the data is not ordered, but I have ordered it for you to save us time. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the following 4 measures. 3 of them are measures of central tendency. That's A, B, and C. And D is a measure of what we call dispersion, or how spread out the data is, the range. But I'm also going to add another question that relates to how spread out the data is. And that is what we call the Q1, Q2, Q3, and IQR. This is called quartile 1, which is a quarter of the way through the data. Q2 is halfway through the data, or what we call the median. And Q3 is 3/4 of the way through the data. Let me know in the chat, have you heard of Q1, Q2, Q3? Just give me a thumbs up if you've heard of Q1, Q2, and give me a thumbs down if you like. Can you just give me a little refresher quickly? Okay, so Valerie, thank you. That's super helpful. Who else? Who's heard of Q1, Q2, or quartile 2, quartile 3, etc.? Okay, so what I'm going to do, okay, awesome. Let's leave question E separately. Let's just do A to D, see how we do on that. And then, okay, fantastic. I will explain it to you. Come to the right place. So let's do A to D first, and then I will do a little explanation. Okay, so you've got 2 minutes to do A to D, and then I will explain the idea of what Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. are. Okay, so answers for A to D are on the board, so to speak. And so that is the basic calculations that we've been doing so far today. Now, these are the simplest measures of where the middle of the data is, and the simplest measure of how spread out the data is. Sometimes, though, data can be a bit complicated, and we need additional ways of describing it. So what Q1 is, and I'm going to actually draw a little bit, what Q1 is it's saying, where is a quarter of the way through the data? Now, we can see the data over here. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we would often say there are 9 items in the data. So if I was saying, where is about a quarter of the way through the data based on this data set, I'm going to say it's roughly in that neighborhood. But knowing exactly where it is, we need to define that. If I had to say where the middle is, I would say it's about there. If I had to say about 3/4 of the way through the data, going from smallest to biggest, would be around here. But obviously in mathematics, what we need is an exact way. And I'm going to show you that now. So what we do is we use the following formula. We first calculate the position in the list, and then we actually find a value for Q1, Q2, and Q3. So since this is the first time you've done this, I'm going to show you how I would do this. And in the next question, you can practice it. So what I do is, if I want Q1, it's a quarter of the way through the data. And so first of all, I'm going to calculate the position of Q1. And I'm going to start by going a quarter, because it's a quarter of the way through this list. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take however many items I have. In this case, it's 9. And I'm going to add 1. Okay. And that leaves me the calculation. 9 plus 1 is 10. And then 10 times a quarter is going to be 2.5. Now, that is not the answer to what is Q1. That is the position of Q1 in the list. So let's go to the list. Well, that's position 1, that's position 2, that's position 3. So if I want the number in position 2.5, all I'm going to do is I'm going to average out the numbers that are in position 2 and position 3. So in this case, I know it sounds like a real mouthful, but I'll repeat it for you. So in this case, 1 plus 1 divided by 2, and the value of Q1 will just be 1. So kind of very, I suppose it looks a bit dull at this stage, but there's more. What is the position of Q2, or what I'm going to call the median? So in this case, because you want to find halfway through the data, I'm just going to go 2 over 4, and I'm going to use the same formula as before. I'm going to not change colors, but basically at this point, it's going to be 5 items through the data. So I have to count from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the value is going to be over there. Let me just take away some of the clutter. So the value for Q2 is going to be 2. Can you see that that is the middle of the data? Then the position for Q3 is going to be equal to, I mean, I hope you're getting bored with this part. Can you see how it's almost the same always? So that's 7.5. Now, again, students in my class is always confused. I remember them confusing the value of Q3 with the position of Q3. So in order to find the value, I have to count to the position 7.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, what I'm looking for is between these two. And in the case of quartiles, we just average them out. So what's halfway between 5 and 6? It's just going to be 5.5. Okay, now the interquartile range is just Q3 minus Q1. So if I go Q3 minus Q1, I get the interquartile range. And what that is the middle 50% of the data. Now, I've colored my page a bit like an abstract painting here. But really, what's happening is I want to know the middle 50% of the data is sitting between here. And so that is the IQR. And in numbers, it's just going to be 5.5 minus 1, which is 4.5. And so the interquartile range is 4.5 units big for this data set. Okay, let us give you some practice because I have spoken lots and lots. Now, I want you to initially ignore, I've introduced something new in this question called a percentile, and I need to explain that. So for now, you leave it out. I want you to, if you look at this data set, I want you to find me, and we'll ignore the percentiles. I want you to find me Q1, or the first quartile. I want you to find me Q2, and I want you to find me Q3 for this data set. And notice this data set is already arranged from smallest to biggest. Okay, so I'm going to let you do that now. You're going to take the data set and you are going to find the value of Q1. And remember, in order to find the value, you first have to find its position in the list. Okay, I'm going to grab some water and I'm going to give you, shall I give you, let's say it's 33, I'll give you 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes to do this. And then pop your answers in the chat when you are. Totally, Elzan, they've got this. Are you learning about statistics for your, do you remember this from your psychology courses or from school?
I do some of it. Yes, but I can't promise that my answers will be correct.
Fine, as long as you're trying. It is quite, once you get a feel for the system of knowing like where in the data we're referring to, there's just basically a formula to follow, which is helpful.
Exactly. We just need the right guidance. That's why we have someone like you to help us.
Oh, I'm glad I could help. Welcome, Isabella, and welcome, Marilyn. I see you with us. So just some reminders, you first calculate the position. Well, first of all, you have to know how many items there are on the list, I guess. Let me see if I can count with you for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I get n is 14. Hopefully I'm right. We'll find out now when I reveal the answers. But if n is 14, then if I want to find the position of Q1, the position, excuse my handwriting, these are all going to have their own little formulas. And remember what I said when we started. This little fraction relates exactly to, and note the difference. This is the ranking in the order. So we have 14. So I guess it'll just be 14 plus 1. Okay, and so then we need to figure out what that is. What's 15 divided by 4? Okay, so we have 3.75. We have position 7.5. And 3.75. Just give me a little thumbs up if you agree with my positions. I haven't answered the question yet, but I'm just getting the positions in the list. Give me a little thumbs up or something, just so I know that you're getting it. Or because the next step is I need to get the values. Okay, so I've given the time. What I'm going to do now is if I look at the position of Q1, it's 3.75. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. Now 4 have gone too far. So really, it's going to be between these two. And so all I need to do is just say minus 25 plus minus 17 divided by 2, because that's how I'm going to get my answer. For position Q2, 7.5, let's just make sure that I am in the right place. So 1, 2, so at the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, so 8. So basically, I'm going to average out these two. So I'm going to go minus 3 plus 0 over 2, and that gives me that one. And then for Q3, 11.25, let's see if I can, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm basically just going to average out those two. And so I would just go 16 plus 18 divided by 2, which I'm pretty sure is 17. Okay, so that's 17. This one, minus 3 plus 0, so minus 1.5 or minus 3 over 2. And then this one, I think I get minus 42 divided by 2, which is minus 21. So if I look at my list, Q1 is going to be over here, and it's a quarter of the way through the data. Minus 3 over 2 is halfway through the data, and that's going to be over there. And Q3 is 17, which is going to be over here. That is 3/4 through the way of the data. And the reason this is so important is that if you want to talk about a really big data set, knowing where these markers are, these guideposts are, like where does the middle 50% of the data or where does the top 25% of the data, it allows you flexibility in analyzing and interpreting. And so I hope that was helpful in giving you a feel for how you would find what we call the quartiles, or it's almost like the fences that divide up the data into quarters. Now you'll notice that the original question says, identify the items at the 25th, 50th, and 71st percentiles. Now, percentiles is very closely related to the quartiles. And in fact, the 25th percentile is actually just the first quartile. And the only thing that you would change, if I'm calculating percentiles, when I'm calculating their position, instead of using a quarter, in the beginning of my fraction, I just go 25 over 100 to find their ranking. So if you look at, for example, that calculation, the only difference is, well, there's no difference. It's going to be in position 3.75. However, when we are dealing with percentiles, we don't average things because percentiles are, it's just sort of a convention that we have. We only average up to the median and to the quartile. When we're dealing with percentiles, we just go to the nearest position. So basically the percentiles, a thing of 3.75, for the 25th percentile, instead of averaging out minus 25 and minus 17, you would just, because it's closer to the 4th position, it would be that. And that is, there's a little bit of ambiguity about how we deal with this, but in most textbooks, if you're dealing with percentiles, you'll go to the nearest number. If you're dealing with the median or the quartiles, you'll average between the two nearest values if it falls between the values. Now, I just want to show you how would I calculate the 71st percentile, because that's not like a neat little quarter. So how would it be different? And I'm going to have to clear my board a little bit. So if you just forgive me for a moment as I get rid of some of this working out. What I'm going to do is, in fact, what do you think I'm going to do? Take a moment, put in the chat, how do you think I'm going to modify my approach for the 71st percentile, or the, how do I find, just put a little suggestion in the chat, because I'm not going to do rocket science, but I am going to modify the approach to take into account the fact that I want to find the percentiles. Could you pop that in the chat? Just give it a go. What do you think is going to be the main difference? I'll give you a minute just to, if you get it wrong, get it right. It's not, I've read some studies which say literally just the act of actively trying helps you remember the final answer better. And so this process of being an active learner, most literature suggests is good for you, even if you kind of get it wrong initially. That's not going to harm your chances of remembering the right answer. What do you think? So the first thing I need to do is calculate the position. And so I don't get confused, I'm going to write POS for position. And then what I'm going to do is, instead of writing Q for quartile, I write P for percentile, and I write a little 71. So what is the position of the 71st percentile? And then I need to find the value of that, which is in the list. And all I do, and this is where I love maths, in that it's very clear. If I want the 71st percentile, I start with 71 over 100. And then I times it by n plus 1. Now, n in this case is 14. So n plus 1 will just be 14 plus 1, or it's going to be 15. So what is my position? And there's no shame in using your calculators when it gets to decimals here. So 15 divided by 100 times by 71, I get the position 10.65. Okay, so 10.65. Now, that is between the 10th and 11th position in the list. And I'm not going to average it because it's a percentile. This is the difference. So let's go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, because of the fact that 10.65 is closer to the 11th position, the value of P71 is going to be 16. Now, it is, and you might say, oh, that's not exact. That's not perfectly in the 71st position. But the data set is really small. And when these are used in real life, we're dealing with millions of data points. So this calculation of the 71st percentile looks a bit artificial in the small data set. But this is the process we'll follow. And so, yeah, that's how I get the 71st percentile. And if I wanted to find the 82nd percentile, I would just modify the number over here to be 82, and I'd follow the same process. Okay, so what have we covered? We've covered finding quartiles, we've covered percentiles, and we've also covered something called the interquartile range. Let us give you some practice. I want you to try and do this for me. Now, hopefully you can see I've saved you the trouble. Initially, the data set was not ranked, what we say ranked or ordered. So this original data set was out of order. And if you're going to do calculations with measures of spread and find quartiles and find percentiles, you need the data to go from smallest to biggest. But luckily, I have ordered it for you. So you are going to be looking at that data set. I want you to find the value of Q1, Q2, Q3, and I want you to find P90, and I'm going to add my own little variation. I want you to find the IQR, or what we call the interquartile range. Okay, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes for that, and then I think we are going to end the lesson at that point for today. Okay, so this is our final task for today. And we will go from there. Let's count how many numbers there are. 1, 2, 3. I get n is 12. Hopefully you agree with me. And so what I need to do is I need to start by actually doing the position of all these things. What is the position of Q1? Position of Q2? Let me just move that up and get rid of this. What is the position of something went mad. Excuse me, I think everything just changed to red. Position so what do we have? It's actually, I've done this answer already. Let's have a look. Did I hide it there? I did. Oh, fantastic. So initially, you should be getting answers like this. Let me get rid of that. So that's going to be your position calculations. Now, that is not the answer to the question that I want. I want you to figure out for me, what is the actual value of these things going to be? So that's just the initial calculation. I see some answers coming in. Thank you very much. Don't be afraid to pop your answers in if you feel like you're, again, like I said, it's the active learning that really makes the difference, hey? So even if you're getting it wrong, the act of putting it in the chat and then reflecting on the right answer, that helps you. Okay, so let's finish this off. If you haven't finished, I do apologize. But you can also look at the video that's been recorded. So if I look at 3.25, now that is going to be basically somewhere between, it's going to be here. And because it's a quartile, I'm just going to average these two over here. For Q2, it's 6.5, the position. And so I'm just going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I should be averaging out those two. And for Q3, it's 9.75. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm averaging out those two. And so that will give me my various quartiles, which I will look at in a moment. I'll bring the values up on the screen. Position P90, that's a percentile, the 90th percentile, and that's position 11.7. So that's actually closest to the last value, because that would be the 11th value. And so the 12th value, 92.6, is actually going to be the value of P90. And you may say, well, that's a bit strange, but it's got to do with the averaging out aspect of this. And it's just how we define it. So my final answers for this should be, if I can just get my thing to work. Come on. I'm winning at life almost. Well, that's way too big. There we go. Looks a bit like a crime scene, but we will get there eventually. Okay, so that should be my answers. And then the interquartile range is just going to be Q3 minus Q1. So I'm just going to subtract these two values, and I will do it on my calculator now. I will get 88.15 minus 18.65, and I get 69.5 is what I get on my calculator, as long as I'm not. So that would be the IQR. And what that says is the middle set of the data, the middle 50% of the data lies between 18.65 and 88.15. And so that's how spread out the middle 50% of the data is. It's 69.5 units. The 90th percentile is 92.6. And normally that would mean 10% is above it, 90% below, but that's got to do with the small data set. Okay, I'm going to call it to a close. I do hope that it was useful to you. And I do have one or two more things, but I'm just going to hand back to Alzan, and then we can sort of do the other bits and pieces we have to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter.
Cool.
Okay, guys, I'd love to hear how you guys are feeling. Share with me emojis on how this lesson was for you guys. It can be any emoji that you'd like. Share with us on the chat. We've got a heart. Thank you, Jolene.
Good.
A star from Valerie.
Yeehaw.
Okay, awesome. That's great to see, guys. Well, if it was a bit difficult for you guys, you know where to go. Watobe app. Okay, so is it okay, Peter, can I share my screen, or is there something you still want to share?
There's just one thing.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So I'd love for you guys, I set up a little quiz there may be some stuff in here which we didn't get to, but I'd love for you to try out a quiz that I set up before the lesson in your own time, before the next lesson. And all you need to do is go to the address joinmyquiz.com and put this code in. And if you put that code in, you should get a bit more practice on what we were doing today. There's one thing called the standard deviation, which we didn't get to, which I'll talk about in the next lesson. But if you could just give that a go so you could give some feedback in the next lesson, that would be awesome. And that's it from me. All good. Over to you, Elzan.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, guys, so take a screenshot or quickly write this code down. And yeah, you can just give me a thumbs up if you guys are ready. Then I'm going to share my screen. Okay, we've got a thumbs up from Aiden, from Valerie. Cool. From Asemashle, Solofelo. Okay, great. Thank you. So I quickly want to show you guys. I get the right screen. Here we go. So we are busy with stats and probability. As you can see that there's 8 lessons that we are about to do. And you've already done your 1 lesson here. I need to add a different emoji in there. A cheerful emoji because you've aced it today, so well done. And then we'll see you again on Thursday, the 14th of October for graphical representation of statistics. So we're looking forward to see you there. But before then, be sure to complete some of your Watobe lessons. So you can find it on the app. When you go into your topics, you'll see that there's statistics. And then, Peter, you must just tell me if this is the correct one. So underneath statistics, if you guys just scroll down a bit, you'll see central tendency and dispersion. Then there's
That's exactly.
Is this the one?
Perfect. Yeah. And I mean, if they feel like it's very easy, they can do some more practice. But if obviously that would be the perfect place to do it. And then just based on how they feel, they can do more if they feel like it. But that's the one that I would recommend. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so this is your homework until or for Thursday, before Thursday. And then something I'd also like to share with you guys is that the classes is also on our website. So these classes are being recorded, and if there's something that you maybe didn't catch during the lesson, please feel free to go back and listen to Peter, guiding you guys and showing you the way. And also tell your friends about Watobe. Okay, I know you guys are almost starting exams, so we need as much help as we can get. And then, yeah, just on another topic, remember the leaderboard as well. So tell me who's been on the leaderboard before. I'd love to see. You can either unmute yourself or you can thumbs up. Or Atilwe, you've been on the leaderboard. Aiden, Valerie, Tumelo. Awesome. Asamashle. Okay. So let's see, maybe we can mix it up a bit. The Seto's also been on the leaderboard. Let's see who's gonna be on the leaderboard next. Just do as much as you can. You know what is your best. But yeah, it's always nice to see our names for the hard work that we pull off. Okay. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys again on Thursday. Take care till then, guys.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Bye.